has decided that he was going to dispense with the golden cross, and he kept the silver cross, to which he was accustomed, as his papal cross. And this is one of the advertisements. He's making the Masonic crossed swords, which you will find everywhere in Masonry and in Gnostic Freemasonry. An X is an ancient symbol, according to Jim Tressner, 33 Degrees, Scottish Rite Journal. An X is an ancient symbol for change or transformation, long associated in medieval and Renaissance art with the coming of the Messiah, who shall make all things new. So this is a religious movie showing the victory of Satan and the Jesuit order over Protestantism, the overthrow. That's why in the cathedrals they always have Loyola standing on the head of Martin Luther, crushing him, destroying the Bible. They make no bones about who the enemy is. And it's interesting that in this movie, eventually, this is an artist's rendition, the Parliament, and of course all of the buildings associated with it, blows up and is completely destroyed. Nothing left. But the clock stands where? It is the final hour. It is finished. They have succeeded. The job is done. Protestantism and Bible-based theology will disappear. And eventually this masked man who stands for Guy Fawkes and the effort to overthrow Protestantism, the mask is worn by the entire nation. What does that mean? It means that the entire nation, through time, has been indoctrinated to have the same character and mold and thinking as they had. When the Bible tells us about the face of God, Moses was not to see the face of God. He conceived me from behind, because nobody can see the face of God and live. So I'll hide you in the cleft of a rock and I'll cover you with my hand. And I will go by, and then the character of God is given in the most beautiful poetic form. The face stands for the character. It stands for the mind. It stands for the thinking. The world will wander after the beast. It will be indoctrinated to have the mindset that he wants you to have. Now, I want to know where this is going to lead. And how do you carry on with this? I just want to do a few more pointers here. The list of actors employed by these papal criminals, so says Vatican assassins. This man, of course, has a mouth that is very loose, if I may say, so excuse his language, but what he says in a rather harsh way is actually correct. The list of actors employed by these papal criminals is most impressive. Hollywood is merely Jesuit theater, nothing more. Jews involved are papal court Jews worshipping their god Mammon, etc. And it's for the military company of Jesus. Now, if you write something in that fashion and you write it so harshly, maybe people will say, that suits them too, they don't mind. I wouldn't be surprised if some of them are authors of some of these thoughts. Now, Knight of Malta, Jack Valenti, was head of Motion Picture Association of America. If you want to know who controls the mega studios, in 2004, Mr. Saxon was inducted as a Knight of Malta. He owned all of these major companies and, well, also Hollywood studios. Is it really the Jews who control this place? There's an abundance of theatrical performances. We read in a good source now. You see, that's the one mindset. Let's achieve our aims through theater, through great performances that bypass the cognitive. Now let's see what God's way would be, the spirit of prophecy. There's an abundance of theatrical performances in our world, but in its highest order, it is without God. That's a fascinating statement. We need to now point the soul to the uplifted Savior. Deceptions, impositions, and every evil worker in the world. Satan, the wily foe and angels' garments, is working to deceive and destroy. The object of the death of Christ was to declare his righteousness, and no man, woman, or child can do this in their own strength or by their own words. So here's the false righteousness portrayed in these movies. Here's another quote from Adventist Home. Through the drama, he has worked for ages to excite passion and glorify vice. The opera, with its fascinating display and bewildering music, the masquerade, the dance, the card tables, Satan employs to break down the barriers of principle and open the door to sensual indulgence. So there's two ways of reaching minds, one through the theatrical and one through the word. Shows and theaters. Satan's ruling passion is to pervert the intellect and to cause men to long for shows and theatrical performances. The experience and character of all who engage in this work will be in accordance with the food given the mind. The Lord has given evidence of his love to the world. There was no falsity, no acting in what he did. This is interesting. So we have two contrasting mindsets. Which one do you think will be the more popular in this world? Well, hands down. Now, let's get a little bit closer to very modern little children's stories and others, and find out what the real message is, and how the mind must be indoctrinated, and then eventually, where will it lead to? Because this is what I'm very passionate about. Now, in ancient Greece, the god Apollo and Artemis, or Pan and Diana in the other nomenclature, were very, very prominent deities. Even mentioned in the Bible is Diana of the Ephesians. And she's, of course, the goddess of fertility, and she's also the consort of the god Pan. Now, Pan has two sides to him. He has the goat side, the evil side, where he plays the pan flute, and he's the god of sexuality. He roars through the forests, causing panic. That's where the word panic comes from. Pan, chaos. He rapes, he pillages, he's violent. And then he has a good side, which is the good shepherd side, where he carries the sheep, and he is the good shepherd. And this is a very fascinating interplay of good and evil, because Satan has a yin-yang philosophy. Everybody has both sides of the coin, whereas God says, no, you don't have to be evil. You can be only good. You don't have to be balanced by evil in order to make good prominent. So here is the god Pan in his evil form with his pan flute. But he doesn't always have to be shown with his horns and his goat form. Now, if we go to animated movies, like you will find in Disney's Peter Pan, then who are the writers and the organizations? We all know that Walt Disney was a 33-degree Freemason. He was steeped in Medici learning. The Jesuits were behind him, obviously, because they are the harborers of Medici learning. They are the ones who control it in the world. They are the experts in the occult art and in Gnosticism and Kabbalism. Now, in this movie, there are a number of interesting characters. Peter Pan, Wendy, John and Michael Darling, and the mother, who is, of course, called Mary. It's obvious. And who is Peter Pan and who is Wendy? Well, if Peter Pan, it's an interesting Kabbalistic name as well, because Pan, the god of evil, has a consort who is Diana, but he also has a representative on this earth who is called Peter, if you get my drift. And in that theology, there is a female entity who is the mediator and the mediatrix, and that is Mary. So if you analyze the names, you have Peter Pan, you have Wendy, and you have John, and you have Michael. Now, the name John always in the occult world becomes an acronym for something else. We'll discuss this a little bit. Just to show you a little bit more of another side of Peter Pan, he always wears this little hat with a feather in it. Now, it's actually a replica, and well, we don't have to go into all the details. Just remember, Peter Pan has that little hat on his head. And he has funny ears, and obviously he's alien. He's not from this dimension. And there are the three little children, John, Wendy, and Michael. Now, let's have a look at the personalities. This you can find on any web page. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to find this. John is shown to be extremely sophisticated despite his age. He often speaks in a sophisticated way, which his younger brother, Michael, usually mimics and repeats, although simplistically, in a stupid way, in other words. For example, John, "Oh, I should like very much to cross swords with some real buccaneers." Michael, "Yeah, and fight pirates too." Obviously, it's one and the same thing. The one is just sophisticated, the other one is not sophisticated. Now let me take you to heaven. In occult thinking, who's the older brother in heaven? Satan. Who's the younger stupid brother in heaven? Jesus. What's his other name? Michael. Okay. Now it's also interesting that this younger brother shows interest in piracy, which may explain why he plays the part of Captain Hook. Now, is Captain Hook the good guy or the bad guy? He's the bad guy. He's the evil one. And Michael always plays the part of the evil one. And they cross swords, and they're fighting. Now, these are the swords with which they fight, and it's all made to appear very congenial and interesting and funny, and kids love it, and adults love it too. But can you see that the sword can also double for a cross? So this is a battle for your soul. Now, how far will this eventually go, and what do the acronyms actually mean? Now, let's just make sure. I've shown this in an old one of mine, but I'll dig it up again for the purpose of this lecture. Here is a famous monastery cathedral in Europe, where the great politicians of the world meet to make decisions for the New World Order. So when they visit there, this is where they will stay, and this is where they will deliberate. Now, in the garden, I found this statue, which they have titled David. And David is being depicted there as the good shepherd, but in his hand he has a pan flute. And David never played the pan flute, he played the lyre. The harp, at least, the harp. So, this is not David, this is the god Pan. And so I realized when I saw this statue, this is the god Pan in his good shepherd form. Now, whenever you show the yin, you must also show the yang. So, where in the cathedral will I find his other form, his evil form, to balance him out and make the esoteric Kabbalistic place complete? So I went looking for it, and I searched high and low until I eventually found it. And I found many other things on the relief of the building, and there it is. There he is. You see him? There's the god Pan in his evil form as the goat-footed god. So this is the god Pan. This is the one who they worship. But Pan has a representative on this planet. And that representative also has a general. And that is, according to the Protestant Reformation, none other than the papacy, whom they identified as Antichrist. So let's go to the Pope and see what he wears and how he displays it. Now, Pope Francis has decided that he was going to dispense with the golden cross, and he kept the silver cross, to which he was accustomed, as his papal cross. And it has on it, and you can see it over there, the emblem of the Good Shepherd. Now the question is, because there are the sheep behind it, and there's Juno the dove, which is pagan form of the deity Juno, and is not a symbol of the Holy Spirit. The question then is this Good Shepherd representing Jesus, or is it representing the god Pan? And Pan, of course, is Satan. That's what it is. Now you will see that he has his arms crossed, like this. Now Jesus is never depicted with his arms crossed like this, but the god Osiris is always depicted with his arms crossed. And as we have seen, the cross is a symbol of victory and a new order which will be brought in by the coming Messiah, which is of course the worship of Lucifer, which precedes the coming of Christ. So this god here, by the very nature, is the god Pan. But am I now on speculative ground? So let's go to his predecessor and retired current Pope, who happens to be Pope Benedict. And there he is. And this is his coronation. And he's receiving a mitre. And on his mitre, there is a deity displayed. Now, I've tried to increase the size, but the quality is not very good. Of course, he has the broken cross there with him, symbol of the broken cross, the bent cross, symbol of victory over Christ, of Lucifer, with an emaciated Jesus hanging there. But this deity over here is playing an instrument, and if you look very carefully, you might recognize that it is the pan flute. So he has the god Pan right on his head. He's the representative of Satan on this planet. That is what the symbolism says. Whether we like it or not, that might sound incredibly harsh, and I apologize for saying it as blunt.